If you're planning a trip to Italy, this is the travel itinerary you'll need to save. Italy is one of the most beautiful countries I've ever visited. It truly has something for everyone, from beautiful beaches, stunning mountains and meadows, coastal villages, small towns, and iconic cities full of history and culture. But with so many incredible places to see and things to do, planning your trip can quickly become overwhelming. From deciding where to stay and eat to figuring out public transportation, the logistics can get tricky. I spent months researching the top sites, best views, hidden gems, and everything in between to plan our amazing 11-day adventure through Rome, Cinque Terre, Florence, the Dolomites, and Venice. So, let's dive into 11 days in Italy. Okay, so public transit in a new country can feel intimidating, but honestly, it wasn't too bad. Most major cities like Rome, Florence, and Venice are super walkable. We didn't take any transit within those cities, aside from 1 or 2 taxis in Rome. But between cities, trains were your go-to. We planned all our routes using a site called Rome to Rio. It shows you all the ways to get from point A to B via train, bus, car, whatever you need. When you're taking trains, I highly recommend booking ahead. Rome to Rio usually links to a third-party site called Omio, but here's a tip. You can take the info from Rome to Rio and book directly on Trenitalia or Italo. It's a couple extra clicks, but I saved a couple euros per ticket, which really adds up. Once you're at the train station, if you haven't pre-bought your tickets, you can do so at the machines, which are in multiple languages. You just type in your destination and pick your train and time. To find your platform, look for the train number, not just the destination, since your stop might not be the final one. And don't panic if your platform doesn't show up right away, it can pop up just 2 or 3 minutes before departure. Outside of trains, we used a few other options too. We took a shuttle bus from the Rome airport to our Airbnb. We used an app called Free Now, which is kind of like Uber, but mostly runs in Rome, and even hopped on a tram in Florence. When in the Dolomites, we also rented a car from a company just outside the train station in Venice. The one important thing you may need is an international driving permit depending on your country, so make sure you bring this or you won't have a rental. We got a cute little Fiat 500, which was great, but honestly, I wish we'd gotten something with a little bit more power, as we struggled on some of those winding mountain roads in the Dolomites. Also, if you're taking toll roads, make sure to grab a ticket when you enter and exit in the correct lane. I outline this info on the screen here. We kicked off our Italy adventure by landing in Rome and hopping straight onto our shuttle to our Airbnb. It was cheap, easy to book, super convenient after a long flight. I'll drop the link for it below if you're interested. After settling in, we headed out to Trastevere, one of Rome's more local-feeling neighborhoods. It's full of charm, amazing food, and those classic cobblestone streets that make you feel like you're in a movie. Honestly, one of the most magical things about Rome is that everywhere you turn, there's something beautiful. Stunning architecture, cozy alleyways, and more gorgeous churches than you can count. And yes, you can actually go inside most of them for free. We wandered through the city at our own pace, passing by some iconic spots like the Pantheon and Piazza Navona. No specific destination, but just wandering in a beautiful city. One place I did plan to visit was the Church of St. Ignatius of Loyola. It's famous for the incredible ceiling artwork, and I would highly recommend checking this out, as it was one of my favorite things to see. We started off day 2 by heading to the Trevi Fountain. I knew this place gets packed, so we aimed to beat the rush by getting there around 7 a.m. And yes, it was still busy. But honestly, it wasn't too bad. If you're patient, you can definitely snag a good photo spot. Most people take their pics and just move on. As of 2025, the fountain now has a 400-person capacity rule between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. So if you really want that peaceful moment, I'd suggest coming even earlier, maybe even 5 a.m. to really soak it all in. On our walk back, we passed by the Pantheon, and this time there was much less people, perfect for a peaceful moment to take it all in. We then stopped for a proper Italian breakfast at San Estachio Cafe. Super tasty. We sat, we sipped, and enjoyed the slow Italian morning vibes. Later that day, we made our way to the Vatican for a guided tour of the museum. Now here's a tip. To get your tickets, book directly from the official Vatican website. I'll link it below. You'll save some money compared to third-party sites. And by the way, don't fall for the whole skip the line gimmick, as all tickets have a reserved time slot, so you already skipped the line with these. Tickets usually open about 2 months in advance, so keep an eye on it. When it is your date, you'll enter from the north side of the Vatican. I'll put the address on the screen. Make sure to arrive about 30 minutes before your slot. Any earlier, they'll ask you to wait on the side. Seeing everything in person was a totally different experience, and something I really enjoyed, even as someone who usually doesn't appreciate art and history. The exit walk in the museum is also really long, and after that long walk, we went back to our accommodation to rest up for the second half of our day. The main reason for this trip was actually for a friend's wedding, and spend the evening celebrating the beautiful day with even better people. After a long day filled with history, art, and love, we made it back to our place and finally got a good night's sleep. After a late night at the wedding, we gave ourselves a slow start. No alarms, no plans. We grabbed a bite, packed our bags, and got ready for our next stop, Cinque Terre. We hopped on a direct train from Rome to La Spezia. Our train ride was super chill, the train had comfy seats, and it had some great views along the way. Once we arrived, our first stop was to grab the Cinque Terre cards. These are like an all-access pass for the region. You get unlimited train rides between the villages and access to all the hiking trails. You can get a 1, 2, or 3 day pass. A single train ride is already around €5, so if you're hopping between villages, the pass pays for itself fast. Pricing varies depending on the season, so I'll link the price chart below so you can see if it's worth it for your travel dates. Trains here are super simple, as they only go in 2 directions, either to La Spezia or to Levanto. Just figure out which direction your destination is and hop on the right train. They do run frequently from 5 a.m. to 1 a.m. with rides only a few minutes long. When we got to Rio Maggiore, it was pouring. We made a dash to our Airbnb, dried off, and settled in. Not exactly the sunny coastal vibes we had in mind initially, but sometimes the rainy days turn out to be some of the best days. Later in the afternoon, we took advantage of the near empty streets and headed to Manarola. Since it was raining, there was much less people, making it super peaceful, and it really gave us a small Italian village vibe. That day was probably one of the most memorable of our trip. We then grabbed some incredible takeaway pasta from Takeaway Pasta, and shortly after wandered down the coast to watch the waves crash into the rocks as the rain continued. We made our way back to Rio Maggiore, dried off again, and called it an early night. Day 4 kicked off with a morning hike between the villages. I went with the trail from Vernazza to Monterosso. I read online that it's one of the most beautiful hikes in Cinque Terre. Plus, we wanted to end our morning with a beach day in Monterosso, as it's the only village with a sandy beach. I had wanted to start early to avoid the heat and the crowds, but we ended up hitting the trail around 9 a.m. Luckily, it was still pretty empty, barely any hikers, and we had most of the trail to ourselves. One of my favorite highlights of the trail was the view of Vernazza lit up by the morning sun. It was truly amazing, and we had to stop for a long break just to admire the beautiful views. Now, remember how I said there were no crowds? Yeah, that was up until 10:30 or 11 a.m. Once we got closer to Monterosso, the trail got much busier. There's a narrow section with steep stairs that had major congestion as groups started coming in from the other direction. That's why I highly recommend starting early and hiking from Vernazza to Monterosso, as it's also the easier direction to hike in terms of incline. To note, this hike does require either a Cinque Terre hiking pass or a regular Cinque Terre card, or you can pay at the beginning of the hike. They often check for these, and also make sure to wear closed-toed shoes, bring water, and dress to get sweaty. The whole hike took us about 2 hours, but we stopped for tons of photos along the way. Once we got to Monterosso, we grabbed a quick bite, then headed straight to the beach. The town is split into two areas, with the newer area in the west, and the old town area in the east, with less flat terrain and fewer beaches. Both sides have beaches and lidos, which are beach clubs where you can rent chairs and umbrellas. We picked one near the middle that seemed less busy and crowded. I highly recommend going to a lido, as they provide a beach chair and umbrella, which make a huge difference for your beach day in the scorching Italian sun. This lido also had a bathroom and an outdoor shower. Once you rent your spot, it is yours for the day. You can even leave and come back later. Prices can vary depending on the season, but it was totally worth it for a relaxing beach experience. In May, we paid about 30 euros for 2 people. After the beach, we wandered around Monterosso village, checked out some shops, and grabbed dinner at Da Eraldo. Although they had some cute outdoor setup and decent online reviews, overall the food wasn't our favorite and was a bit underwhelming. If I'm being real, I actually liked the takeaway pasta from Manarola better. Sometimes the simpler meals just hit the hardest. We also caught a gorgeous sunset back in Rio Maggiore, and after a full day of hiking, swimming, and eating, we were ready to call it a night. Day 5 started off dark and early as we hopped on the first train out of Rio Maggiore to La Spezia, and from there to Florence. Since we only had one full day in Florence, I wanted to make the most out of every minute. As a nice surprise, 2 of our friends were also in town, so we linked up for a full Florence adventure. Since we came straight from Cinque Terre, our Airbnb wasn't ready yet, so we stored our bags in lockers near the train station. Super easy and automated, which I would totally recommend if you're doing the same. To note, Santa Maria Novella station is the main station for Florence and is very central and well connected, as it's only about a 10 to 15 minute walk to the Duomo. Since we skipped breakfast, we headed to Mercato Centrale, which is a quick 8-minute walk from the station, and it has 2 levels. The bottom is more traditional with meat and veggie markets and local eats, while the top floor has a more modern food market vibe. I ended up grabbing a sandwich from one of the places upstairs, and this was actually a really good sandwich. Later, we tried the famous sandwiches at El Antico, and I kinda liked my market sandwich just as much, plus there was no lineup either. After filling up, we wandered the city. I had a few things on the must-see list, like the Duomo, but mostly we just explored and soaked up the Florence vibes. Then came a major highlight, Vivaldi. Famous for the affogatos, I tried both the classic and the pistachio version, and I swear this was one of the best things I had in Italy. Top 3, maybe even top 1. If you go to Florence, don't skip this place. Even though we're still full, we had to try the famous sandwich shop, El Antico. And yeah, it did live up to the hype, totally recommend it. But again, my earlier sandwich, surprisingly just as good. We had to walk off all the food, so we continued on exploring. In the late afternoon, we visited both the Bardini and Boboli gardens. We grabbed a combo ticket for both gardens at about €6.50 a person, and started at the Bardini gardens. Not a ton of flowers in bloom yet, but it's still beautiful. Plus, it was a nice way to escape the crowds for a bit. We then made our way to the Boboli Gardens, which is just as lovely and much larger. It felt like a quiet and peaceful escape in such a bustling city. The exit is actually near the Pitti Palace, which you can tour, but we decided to skip it this time. At this point, we were all getting pretty tired, so we decided to part ways to our accommodation. Our place for the night was just outside the city, so we hopped on a quick 20-minute tram to the neighborhood of Scandici. I loved this area, it felt way more local, and it felt like we were the only tourists around. For dinner, we hit up Pizza and Go. The staff were super friendly, and the pizza was also really tasty. The Airbnb we got was very clean, modern, and affordable, a great option if you're staying in or around Florence. It was definitely a jam-packed day in Florence, but truly I wouldn't have had it any other way. Day 6 was meant to be another chill travel day. We planned to take a train from Florence to Venice Mestre station, which is just outside of Venice, where we would grab our rental car and cruise into the Dolomites. It just so happened that a nationwide train strike was happening this day, with many trains delayed and cancelled. So we waited, stalked a live train tracker like it was our job, and nervously exchanged updates with fellow stranded travelers. Thankfully, the train showed up after a 2-hour delay, and we're off to Venice. From there, things got back on track. We picked up our rental car, a little Fiat 500, without issue, and started a drive into the Dolomites. Even though we were behind schedule, the views made up for it. Since we were short on time, we skipped Lago di Santa Croce, a beautiful turquoise blue lake, on the way in, but if you have the time, check it out for a nice break. We kicked off our time in the Dolomites in the east, staying in a small town called Pieve di Cadore, just southeast of the more touristy Cortina. It was quiet, charming, and a little bit more affordable. After the long day of travel, we wrapped things up with a dinner at a cozy spot called Locanda ai Dogi. And this place was actually our favorite place to eat for the whole trip. I had the best carbonara here, and I still dream about it. So yeah, the day didn't go as planned, but we made it. We were safe, well fed, and ready to start our Dolomites adventure. Our first full day in the Dolomites, we planned to hike Trecime, but in late May, the road to the trailhead at Refugio Oronzo was still closed. Normally in the summer, you can just drive right up, though starting in 2025, you'll need a reservation. But in the off-season, you park further away at Lago Antorno and hike an extra 2 hours with a lot more elevation gain. Normally, that wouldn't scare us, but we were both feeling pretty under the weather, so we decided to save our legs and lungs for another time. Leading up to this day, I'd been religiously checking the live webcams, hoping the road would open, but nope, still closed. I'll link the reservation site and webcams in the description for future travelers. We took it easy and went on a little lake tour, hitting Lake Misurina, Terenzi, and Lago di Dobbiaco, all which were absolutely stunning. After a quick lunch, we headed to one of the Dolomites' most famous spots, Lago di Breas. I originally wanted to come super early to avoid the crowds, but due to our schedule change, we rolled in around 2 p.m, and it wasn't that bad. We paid about €10 to park at the furthest dirt lot, but honestly they're all next to each other, so the distance is really minimal. We strolled the loop around the lake, soaking in the views. You can also rent a rowboat here, but there was a long line, and the price, as you can see here, was a bit steep. Still, the views from the shore were just as magical. Around the lake, there's also a hotel, a gift shop, and a few food stops as well. From there, we drove west into the heart of the Dolomites to our next stay, a small town called Villanders. We found this adorable German-inspired hotel on Airbnb, and it instantly became one of our favorites, with a pool, laundry, a full kitchen, the kindest staff, and a view that was to die for. Once we settled in, we popped over to the nearby town of Ordese for evening exploration, which included the shops, streets, getting groceries, and having a cozy dinner. During our stroll, we found an information center with staff, so if you're looking for extra information, this is a good spot. Overall, another chill evening with perfect mountain town vibes to end the day. We started our day with a drive to Castel Roto to catch a cable car to go up to Alpe di Susi. To note, there are actually 2 cable cars to go up to Alpe di Susi, one here in Castel Roto and another in Ordese. We chose Castel Roto because it's right by our bike rental shop and had a free sheltered parking. The lifts open at 8 a.m, but times change with the seasons, so check here before you go. I'll link that below. The cable ride up was scenic with lush rolling green hills, tiny villages in the distance, and mountains slowly filling the skyline as we made our way up. Alternatively, you can also drive up to Alba di Susi, but only before 9 a.m. and after 5 p.m. unless you're a local car or staying at a hotel there. At the top, you'll find restaurants, cafes, and little shops selling hiking, biking, and ski gear. We rented our e-bikes from a shop called Sportsons. They had super friendly staff, and the rental process was quick and simple. The employees suggested we take a big loop around the area, which took us about 4 hours with plenty of postcard-worthy photo stops, challenging climbs, and wonderful descents, and a long lazy lunch at one of the refugios. Quick tip, unless you love punishing climbs, get an e-bike. The trail had steep dirt sections, and having that extra boost made the ride way more fun. Also, make sure to grab a padded seat and a helmet. After a long bike ride, we took the cable car back down to head back to our Airbnb, and then called it an early night, grabbing some dinner in town and cozied up with a nice movie. After an epic day 8, you'd think it would have been possible to top, but day 9 was pretty close. We kicked things off with a drive north to the charming little village of Santa Maddalena to see one of the most famous views in the Dolomites, the Santa Maddalena Church. You've probably seen in postcards a tiny church set against a jaw-dropping backdrop of jagged peaks. We rolled in around 8 a.m. with the place nearly empty. The walk up to the church was calming and serene as we entered a sunshine-filled meadow that led us towards a small farm, which you had to pass through to get to the connecting trail on the other side. If you got the energy, keep walking past the church up the trail. There's actually a higher viewpoint with an amazing photo spot that everyone raves about. I only learned this later, so don't make my mistake. In the village, there's also another famous spot, the Church of St. John, which you can pay to park and walk up to the church. But I found the view from the bottom of the hill to be more than enough. There are 3 parking lots in town, so you can pick one that best works for what you want to see. I'll link them down below. Our next stop was Cinque, another Dolomites bucket list view. We actually got pretty lucky, as the lifts had just opened a few days earlier. Sure, you can hike up, but unless you're after a hardcore workout, just take the lifts. It's a 2-step process that involves you taking an individual cable car and then transferring to a bigger gondola that takes you right to the top. The second you step off, there's views for days. There are trails in all directions, plus a restaurant right by the gondola stop. Although convenient, it was expensive and the food wasn't anything to write home about. The main trail starts to the left with a steep incline up the famous viewpoint next to the statue. If you continue this path, there's an even better viewpoint lined up with a ridge. We walked part of it, took in the views, and then decided just to explore the nearby area and enjoy the view on one of the benches nearby. When we were done, we rode the gondola back down, grabbed some gelato and dinner, and we watched the day turn into night. Day 10 was our farewell to the Dolomites, and we definitely picked the right day to leave because it began to rain up in the mountains for the day. After a rainy 3-hour drive, we arrived back at Venice Mestre station to return our rental car. From Mestre, we hopped onto a train to the small town of Mira. This was where our Airbnb was waiting. Originally, we had planned to stay in Venice, but instead found this very homey villa just outside the city for a fraction of the cost. The host was super lovely, and I'll link the Airbnb below, highly recommend. After settling in, the skies cleared, so we headed straight into Venice for the afternoon. We didn't have a strict itinerary, just a few landmarks, some food spots, and an open mind to wander the maze of canals, bridges, and hidden piazzas. Everyone says you have to take a gondola ride when in Venice, but at about 90 euros for 30 minutes, and the canal is packed with people, we didn't think it was worth it. Technically, we didn't ride a gondola, just a different kind. The Traghetto, a gondola ferry that locals use to cross the Grand Canal, costs only about 2 euros per person. It's over in about a minute, but hey, it still counts, right? If you want to try it, head to Campo Santa Sofia crossing. Of course, Venice is all about eating. We stopped at Vino Vero, known for its wine and cicchetti, basically Venetian tapas, and it was fantastic. For gelato, we tried the famous Suso, which was good, but felt a little overhyped. My personal favorite spot for the day ended up being Gelateria Galonetto, a smaller line, creamier texture, and overall better flavor. We then ended the day at the iconic Rialto Bridge, where we watched the sunset over the Grand Canal. It did get a little crowded, but you can carve out a little spot to soak it all in and feel like you're in the middle of a painting. A perfect end to another beautiful day in Italy. For our final day in Italy, we headed back into Venice one last time to enjoy the beautiful city. Our first stop was to wander over to Square di San Gervaso, Venice's only remaining gondola workshop. From across the canal, you can watch craftsmen hand build and repair these iconic boats. There was even a nice patch of grass nearby to enjoy, which was rare for Venice. On our way towards the southern area of the city, we passed by what seemed like a hidden spot for some beautiful photos. I found this place nice, and it's quiet, and it lets you get close to the water for a nice photo. To get here, set the GPS to Hotel St. Moisy, and it should just be around the corner. For lunch, we ate at Cinque Terre. It had decent food, but at least the view was pretty amazing. Then it was my wife's favorite time, gelato time, which we stopped at Ground for. Hands down, it was the best gelato we had in Venice. It was so good, we went back for seconds as we were leaving the city at the train station. From there, we made our way to Basilica Santa Maria della Salute, a stunning white domed church that sits right where the Grand Canal meets the open lagoon. We also then crossed the Accademia Bridge, the big wooden one with gorgeous views of the canal that might rival the Rialto. In addition, it was probably because we were sweating buckets in the heat, but we grabbed a little slushy nearby, and this really hit the spot when we enjoyed the view from the bridge. After a lot of walking, we took a breather in Gardini Reali, a peaceful park just minutes from the chaos of St. Mark's Square. No food, booze, napping, or loud chatter allowed, so it's the perfect quiet escape. We returned back to St. Mark's Square to just relax, people watch, and enjoy the vibes. We wrapped up with some takeaway pasta, which was honestly better than most of the sit-down restaurants we tried. We also had to get one last gelato at Fantasy Gelato. Although it was tasty, Grom was still our favorite. At this point, I can't describe how full I was, so we digested some food and hopped on a train back home. Saying goodbye to Venice and really our trip overall, although we will have some memories to last a lifetime. We had a super early flight, so we said our goodbyes and wrapped up our time in Venice. Like any trip, we found incredible spots, uncovered some hidden gems, and yeah, ran into a few hiccups too. But honestly, that mix is what makes travel memorable. You can't have the highs without the lows. Due to our limited time, we missed out on some things, but here's what I do differently for the next time, or what you might want to consider for your own trip. In Rome, we skipped the Colosseum due to time constraints, but would have loved to check this out. In addition, I'd have loved to wake up ridiculously early and rent e-scooters to zip around the city. In Cinque Terre, I'd fit in more swimming and hiking, and in the Dolomites, the Tre Cime hike would be a must-do, with more biking on the mountain as well. And while we did find some great affordable accommodations, next time I'd splurge a bit more to stay closer in the city. The nightlife in some parts of Italy is worth experiencing, even though we went to bed early most nights to wake up early. What stayed with me the most weren't just the sights, but the moments. Wandering Rome's art-filled streets, soaking in Cinque Terre's stunning views, laughing with friends in Florence, marveling at the Dolomites mountain towns, and living scenes straight out of a movie in Venice. And if this video does anything, I hope it inspires you to visit Italy one day to make your own memories. If you're interested in more of my videos, make sure to check out my time in Oregon where we got married, my time in Iceland when I proposed to my now wife, and even our fun little trip to Vancouver Island. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next adventure.